Well, hello, everyone. My name is Lora Painter, evening anchor at ABC 10 and also a proud board member of the Sacramento Philharmonic and Opera. Our special guests today are, just wonderful, wonderful artists. We have Andrew Altenbach, our conductor, and Giselle Ty, our stage director for the first opera of our season, our 2023-2024 season. And we are so, so excited and just welcoming to have you here. Thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
So I just wanted to start, we'll just go around and tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm always very intrigued in how our experts get into their fields. Giselle, will you just tell us a little bit about your story and how does one get into stage directing?
Oh yeah, what I found with a lot of fellow stage directors of opera in particular is people have come from so many different mixes of backgrounds. And my particular track was that I started studying orchestral trumpet and art history at my university. And then towards the end of my time at the university, I started to do more interdisciplinary stuff. And then I moved from Chicago area to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and didn't know what I wanted to do anymore, if I wanted to continue with orchestral trumpet or not. So I started taking theater classes and Latin classes, and then eventually dropped the Latin and stuck with theater. So I spent a lot of time with this really amazing institution called the American Repertory Theater, which was attached to a university. And it was one of the sites of really interesting and challenging, visually beautiful international theater. Right now it's a little bit more Broadway, but at the time, it was one of the big producers of experimental theater in the United States. And that was my foundation of theater. A lot of my mentors were there. And then after that, I eventually got connected to opera organizations. And so it sort of made sense that the merge of learning stagecraft without music would merge with my orchestral music background. And it seemed a decent fit because in opera, you sort of need to pull out so many different tricks. You have to have some movement background. You have to be able to deal with languages. You have to also deal with different levels of acting that are brought in and different styles. So what I found is that every stage director comes from really random combinations of different arts backgrounds, and then they end up loving opera.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, opera is such a beautiful and rich art form, right? It just pulls in so many different talents and things like that. That's wonderful. Thank you, Giselle. And Andrew, how did you get into conducting? Did you come from a musical background, musical family, and play a lot of instruments? How did you get into that?
No, not a musical family, but a supportive one. And then I went to university in Chicago as well, and studied piano and economics, and then started working with singers um, because that was actually on a pragmatic sense, that was a way of like earning a few extra dollars as a student. And I've always really loved foreign languages. So it was combining singing and language, and the repertoire was just incredible. I was already studying some conducting, but more symphonic, and then I started to add on the vocal element to it. So and I found that working with singers was very rewarding, just like personally, musically, and then that actually helped me fund my way towards graduate school as well, where I was working a lot at Indiana, where there's a very big opera department and lots of productions. So I was really doing a full season of opera all throughout my graduate studies. Um, and then there just went, spent a lot of time in the Midwest. I was up in Minnesota working for their opera company. And then I ended up in the Boston area with the Boston Conservatory for about a dozen years or so. But along the way, I was working at summer festivals at Santa Fe and Chautauqua and Music Academy of the West and places like that. The Marilla program in San Francisco. And it's sort of like the opera has always been the place where opportunities have opened up for me professionally, but it's also um, just something that's very near and dear to my heart. There's something wonderful about being a part of you go into the theater and then you have this story unfold over the course of a long period of time. It's different from very different from symphonic music or like playing a piano recital. Those have dramatic elements, of course, but it's a different skill. It's more like marathon running. Not that I run a marathon, but it's like it's long distance. It's long distance music making as opposed to like short, intense sprints.
That's very beautifully said. And you're reminding me of the power of the human voice, whether it's through singing or through stage acting. There's something just so relatable to it as an art form. So let's expand on that. Giselle, when you're working with singers and in your stage directing and then their acting abilities, right? Fledermaus has a lot of dialogue or banter. Am I correct in that? How is it like for you to work with the human voice and have that part of storytelling out there? And then Andrew, I'll ask a similar question to what that means for you as artists.
Yeah, I think when you work in the field, you have to be prepared for a wide range of an acting palette that singers come with. There are some of the most incredible actors I've seen are some opera singers, and then some also, have focused more on the singing, and so that's what they lead with, and some come with so many different things. And I would say what is delightful about this cast is that they are both, and they're very playful actors as well. They're not stilted when they're reading the dialogue. And something that's important about Fledermaus is people forget that there are more than 20 scenes in the original version. It's probably would be a 4-hour event if everybody did everything that was originally written. And thankfully, we're doing a much shorter version, but it really is demanding. And what I've heard from the cast as I've spoken with them, the people who have done multiple Fledermauses, I think there's a very intentional casting process trying to get people who are also great with their body, because physical comedy relies a lot on that kind of body control and playfulness. When do you let loose and when do you attend to the rhythm? So it really requires multiple threats for this kind of show. And what's funny is that I think a lot of people program Die Fledermaus because they think it's actually a light and easy show, but from the production and technical end, it's actually a beast, I would say. I don't know how Andrew feels about it.
Yeah, Andrew, what are your thoughts? I mean, we have a wonderful cast, and it's a large cast too. That's, I guess, the beauty of opera too, is that you have a lot of different characters. What are your thoughts on the singers and the acting as well?
Well, first of all, they are hilarious. And a number of them bring a lot of experience to the table and actually experience with Fledermaus. So they have this quiver of tools to pull out at different times. What's kind of funny is that some of them in rehearsals, like they'll change things up, even if it's slightly different. And what I know is that some of them are actually going to pull some new ones out at the performance. They always save a few extra ones for the performance. So
We got the juicy scoop, the inside
that's
scoop.
right. Yeah. So it's kind of the fun volatility of the process.
And what I would say about this particular group is that they are so supple, I would say generally, that they work like theater actors. That kind of impromptu throwing in little bits here and there in a comedy is something that someone who's working only in straight theater would be able to do pretty easily. But I think the preparation process for an opera singer has to be so exact with the music side that not all of them are able to have that looseness. And the ones who are, it is a real joy to watch, because you can even see it when they're singing, that these things improv can come up when they're singing. And that's, I think, quite special with this particular group of shenanigan loving people.
How exciting. Well, we are certainly in for a treat. Andrew, tell us a little bit about Strauss, the music. What is Fledermaus all about?
Well, in a word, I would say it's about charm. So it's built on lots of dances. Strauss is called the Waltz King. and a lot of music that we've come to love from all the way from the 1600s up to the music of today, foundationally, it's built on these dance rhythms and dance forms. Some of them being very, very rustic, like coming out of peasant backgrounds, all the way up to very, very aristocratic notions. And the waltz is probably the waltz and polka are the two most featured dances in this. And there's when you have that as the rhythmic background of something, there's always a sense of movement. Even if the actors aren't moving on stage, there's a sense from the drama that's captured with it. And many people think of the waltz as probably like they're probably thinking white, wigs and stuffiness. When in fact it was not seen that way at all. It was a way to like get up close and personal with somebody. Because you had to really you have to really grip them. And if you're gonna swing around a dance floor, there's a lot of body contact. And some people were like really riveted by that and excited. Other people were very prudish and thought that didn't have a place in high concert music or opera. So nevertheless, it's going to be entertaining if you got opposing sides, right?
How exciting. Giselle, what are your thoughts on on Strauss and this piece? It sounds like you have your work cut out for you, with the music that's very bouncy and lively and open to some comic moments. Like you mentioned, Andrew, some of the close body contact and a lot of dancing. What are your thoughts, Giselle?
Yeah, I think that's the first layer of getting to the Strauss music. And as our team knows, when I first really started to dig into this music, I find that there's also complexity underneath that that bounciness. And a lot of the moments, I find them to be actually stunning and really, really beautifully orchestrated. And I say that coming from, a symphonic loving I'm a symphonic loving person who really likes complicated repertoire. I think he did a really beautiful job orchestrating this piece and taking care of all the dramatic corners and making it feel sweeping. It moves you. So my not fight with this piece, but my journey with this piece is like, what is that richness? It's not just about that surface froth. I think that's what it's known for, that entertaining, funny, crowd pleasing element, but what's the depth behind that? And like Andrew was alluding to, the waltz in that time, was it provocative to stand that close? And that feeling of spinning around and feeling dizzy, it's quite intoxicating. And they sing a lot about alcohol. And so what I'm trying to get at is what is our connection to that intoxication? Not just the substance, but why do we need to get intoxicated? What are we longing for? And how do we do this with a group of either strangers or people we know? So that's something that I'm trying to investigate with this piece. And another thing that we're taking is that, there are a lot of English versions that have been done. I spoke to our singer who's doing Eisenstein, and I asked him, how many versions have you done in English? He said 11. And he said, of those 11, everyone has been slightly different. So because they're irreverent or because it's a lighter piece, it's not one of the dramatic Puccini or Verdi or Wagner's. People play around with the dialogue. They play around with the translation because the act of translation itself requires some changes. So what people will see is a more modern setting for sure, and a partial translation that tries to get to the complexity of what the original German might have held, where I think an example that I have was, there are two examples that I really moved me in the original German text. And one was, happy is the person who is able to forget what is unchangeable. But in German, you can say that in much fewer syllables than you can in English. So how do you find the translation that sets to the music? And the chorus in Act 2 opens with a line that's something like, everything that shimmers in this place seems to us like a dream image that binds us together in a magic circle. So that's also something that's hard to translate. And how do we find that in an English version? That's one of the questions that has been sort of provoking the result that you'll see on the stage would be a vastly different version than the waltzy chandeliers and champagne. So
Ah,
come
how
and be ready for
exciting.
the surprise.
Yeah, so let's expand on that. Can you walk us through some of your style choices, some of the decisions? What inspired your interpretation of this story? Tell us about maybe the new direction that you've taken it in or your interpretation.
Yeah, so there's the layers that have to do with the translation. And so what I was speaking to, getting closer to the depth and the complexity of the original German, was one desire. And then another desire was opening up different possibilities for gender dynamics. In this old version, I told our performer who's playing Adele, I watched a lot of historical productions, and this kind of comedy from this period relies a lot on humor that revolves around traditional men-woman relationships. And the maid figure, as I saw in many productions, spends her whole evening getting spanked on her rear the whole night. And that's comedy. That's what's fun for people. And I just didn't think that would be fun for me to watch for 45 minutes. So trying to see what kind of humor we can find outside of what people usually see when they see this piece mounted in a historic setting. So for instance, with Adele, she usually sings an aria in Act 2, where she is in front of the crowd and she says, "Look at me, I'm so beautiful, look at my waist, look at my shoes. Of course, I'm not a maid." Something like that. But in this version, she talks more about her energy, her creativity, and her style rather than her body. And in Act 3, not to spoil the plot for everybody, but she comes in and talks to what is a prison director, and she basically says, "Will you come pay for my theater lessons?" and uses the whole song to flirt with him and suggests that they can enact different roles about being king and queen and things like that. So while it's an interesting flirtation to be had, I wanted to do something different with it. And so she's asking for a job in technology, which I think would resonate with the California community. And that's another layer that comes into the translation is how does technology play in our society? Does it keep us from accessing that intoxication that's communal, that's embodied? How is it affecting the taste that we have, the choices that we make? Does it make us more image conscious? Do we find ourselves staging ourselves and not really living? And so be prepared to be surprised that this modern technology stream will trickle in. And I can give a little hint, and that's the Eisensteins. Instead of being a bourgeois couple who tries to go to a party and pretend like they're nobles, they are California telecommuters who've decided to move to Berlin because they want to feel more cool and take advantage of the cheap rent and have access to a creative community. So that's the setting that we'll start with, and it should have more opportunity for a more contemporary sense of humor. I personally am not on TikTok and things like that, so I've proposed things like things in the dialogue that have to do with YouTube or something like that, and then people with young children, like Andrew, are like, no, actually, the term is, or people are on TikTok, or the term is fire, not on fire. So I think it'll also bring a lot of young language to the opera stage that might not usually be seen with this particular piece. So also be ready for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Giselle. I'm very excited to see what transpires on stage, and just I love I, this music is, I'll just say, it's old, right? It's been around for a while. And it's so neat to see different interpretations. And I love people's efforts in keeping classical music alive. And it's just so interesting to see different styles. And Andrew, I wanted to ask you about the music as well, how that fits in with really what makes Strauss stand the test of time, really. Why do we keep coming back for more?
Well, man writes a good melody. I mean, if you can write a good melody or a good tune, it I mean, that's in a lot of popular music. I mean, if you think about the stuff that we still sing now that it was written 30 years ago, right? It's usually melodically based. And I think there's something that attracts one human to the next by hearing a nice melody that evokes something exciting or tragic or heartfelt or funny. If you can do that in terms of the delivery of that melody, then that's what helps stand the test of time. And there's something too about like a piece like this. It's fun, and it's got a big cast in it. So you have a lot of people that feel very connected to one another. And pieces like that, they can, from a production angle, like they work for lots of companies over time, which helps them continue as well.
Yeah, thank you. I just got an alert that we have less than 10 minutes left, but I wanted to just ask for any last little nuggets that you want our audience to look out for, to listen for. Maybe you can allude to any surprises or anything like that. Andrew, any thoughts, musically or on the conductor side? I know you guys are still rehearsing, which is so exciting, but as everyone starts to get in their seats and we're getting ready to listen and watch. Any little nuggets that you want the viewers to prepare for?
Yeah, I think there's one of the quintessential sort of hallmarks of this Austrian musical style are these moments of little hesitation and then move, little hesitation and then move forward. And so like if you did the music without any sense of that style, a lot of stuff would be very square. It would go ba dee dee da 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 dee, as opposed to we go diet da diet da diet da, or you have one that goes. If you just did it, it would go dee 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 dee, right? But we go dee 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 dee, and it's that little suspension, like suddenly, like you're away from the ground for a moment, and then it goes on again. That is that I think is a riveting aspect to the music that keeps it exciting and alive for the listener.
I'm definitely going to listen for that. I love that extra little pulse, right? That little extra little kick there in the music. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And Giselle, any thoughts that you wanted to share? Any extra little nuggets? We're very eager for this production, our first one, our first opera of the season. Anything you wanted to clue our audience members into as they, start to enjoy the show?
Being new to Sacramento Opera, what I sense is maybe they should have a little disclaimer that they should expect something that might be a little more irreverent, a little wilder, and a little racier than they would normally expect, even though I think there's plenty of bodiness in this already, even in the historic version, but that it would also come out in a different way. So I think, yeah, just be ready for anything, and there will be ups in the show and there will be downs in the show, to try to sort of reach all of the emotional palette of experience and go along for the ride. Come with an open heart. And also maybe one little nice surprise that I'll spoil is that we do have a furry cast member. So they might be able to expect to see a furry cast member, and I won't spoil it more than that. It won't be a bat, though.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. Welcome to Sacramento. We are so blessed and honored to have you here sharing your talents with us, and I can't wait for the show. Such an honor speaking with both of you. I've learned so much, and I just really enjoy it. So please enjoy the rest of your day. Break a leg. Can't wait to see the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.